girls, it's time to wrap up lesson 7.6, which is on regulating lobbying and lobbyists. This will conclude chapter 7. You should be ready to complete any assessments at this time, projects or tests. But here is the shorter version of the lesson. Fun fact, on average, there are 24 lobbyists for each member of Congress. So if there's 500 some members of Congress, that means there's 24 times that number, whatever number that is. What is it? 2 times 500 is 1,000, right? Times 10, so 10,000 lobbyists at minimum. It's pretty significant. Our government tried to begin regulating lobbying because, as we know, money does make a difference in politics, what gets done, what doesn't get done. In 1946, Federal Regulation of Lobbying Act was passed. It did a couple of things. The first thing it did was it required lobbyists to register with government. This reduced the number of lobbyists who contacted government and appeared to be a good thing, but it really didn't regulate lobbying. It just disclosed or made known who the lobbyists were. Okay? That's really all that it did, but it was a step in the right direction. There are rules in place today that limit and ban gifts to House and members of Congress, and there's no more taking members of Congress on these extravagant or lavish golf outings that we've heard of in the past, or extravagant lunches or dinners. I mentioned earlier that there is now a limit on $50 is all that people can earn, or I shouldn't say earn, but be gifted, and it can be no more than $100 in total value from a single source. So these are good things. Before this time, there was the ability to give thousands, tens of thousands, in some cases, I'm sure almost $1 million. Let's go on to the next piece here. What also happened to put limits or bans on how much House members and Senate members could be influenced was we soon set up a Senate and House Ethics Committee. This is still around today, and this is set up to regulate lobbyists and activity from interest groups towards lawmakers. And currently, here's a little background. It is made up of 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans, as shown in the picture here. And the membership is always set at 6, and it is set up this way with 3 and 3, with the majority party controlling as head chairperson, and the minority party, in this case the Republicans, would be have the second in command or vice chair. But it's always equal, so when they make a ruling, it is fair, it's considered fair. And what this also does is it allows one group, let's say the Democrats, to be vetoed by the Republicans and vice versa on their rulings. So it's set up pretty fairly. Let's put that aside. Right now, I want you to kind of focus on this Senate and House Ethics Committee a little bit more and learn about something called the revolving door in politics. I wish I remembered to talk about this sooner, because this is a pretty important thing. I think you're going to find that there is some good and maybe some more bad that comes out of this problem or theory called the revolving door. What I want you to do is to use source 1 and source 2 to define the revolving door. Here's a little picture of it. Determine how do lobbyists benefit from the concept of a revolving door. So how is it good? And then how do ex-government officials benefit? Another, how is it good? And then what I've done on your sheet right here is I've added a different task. Let me pull that up, and it is this right here. What is your opinion? Is the revolving door a problem in our society? I'm just going to grab that and toss that in here so we can see it quick. So you're going to answer those 4 questions right now. Okay? And when you're done, I want you to cue up the video and finish off the rest of the study guide. Okay? So go ahead and pause and do that research right now. And I do want to warn you, I should warn you, that source 2 is fairly long, and I had to make it so that you could see it. going to be from an advanced level perspective, and I know you can handle it, and I know you're going to be a group of mature individuals to understand that there is a swear word in there, but it's not nothing you haven't heard before, so it's going to be okay. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about that crossing the line, because I think you're mature enough to handle it. All right, pause the video and take care of that task, please. All right, now that you're back in action, we'll finish this up. The Honest Leadership and Open Government Act of 2007 was put together and signed by George W. Bush. And what this did is it tightened reporting requirements for lobbyists. And President Obama in 2008 would sign an executive order that would kind of extend this even more. So these are two extra good things that have come by in our recent history, or somewhat recent history, to limit, or to regulate, I should say, lobbyists and lobbying. What can we conclude about interest groups? These are some pretty basic points for the entire chapter. Please note these down before you submit today. Most interest groups only represent the middle and the upper class. It really leaves out the lower class. We saw in the Occupy Wall Street social movement that people of the, we should say the 99%, they're generally left out. There's great inequality. We know that most powerful interest groups generally are those that rely on the business, the trade, and the unions and the professional groups. Public interest groups and social rights groups are far fewer in numbers, but they do have some impact. Not all interest groups have an equal influence on government, right? We know that large membership groups have great power. We talked about groups such as the AARP, the American Association of Retired People. It's 40 million people. They're very, very powerful because of that, and their dues give them lots of money to influence elections and such. Public support, E, for environmentalist groups can be quite powerful with no direct stake in a group. Okay, so they might not be funding an environmental interest group. They're just kind of there indirectly, and they don't have to have a stake financially. They can be a free rider, as Mancure Olson says. And then finally, we have our well-organized groups like the NRA, which has, I recall, roughly 5 million individuals. They can move messages pretty fast. We call that en masse for Congress. Very quickly. They can have 5 million people calling to influence legislators. They can use their funding, which I heard was like 400, I think it was million. I'm not totally sure on that. Let me look it up quick. NRA funding each year. I think it was 400 million, but I could totally be wrong on that. It was on Wikipedia. It's on the right. It's right over here. Yeah. Revenue, that's $412 million in a year. Holy cow. I was right. So it's super duper influential in that. Last fun fact for the unit, for the chapter, is that the average salary for a lobbyist, guess how much it is? I don't think I had a little note on this. It is $128,000. $128,000, so that's with a K. And that's according to January 2021, salary.com. All right, boys and girls, that wraps up your lesson of 7.6. Again, hopefully you did task here, covering these 4 key questions about the revolving door. Be ready to explain and discuss this in our next class period. Thank you for your attention to detail, and good luck in your endeavors